This is Thrivenomics, presented by Thrive Mortgage. All right, welcome back to another episode of Thrivenomics. We are very excited about our guest today, and I'm your host, James Duncan. I'm the Director of Marketing for Thrive Mortgage, and wanted to kind of set up what today's episode is all about. We've got Memorial Day coming right around the corner, and at the time of we're recording about a week ahead of Memorial Day this year. And the guest that I have on is somebody that I have gotten to know fairly well and have a great deal of admiration for because of what she's accomplished and the way that she is serving our veterans who have served us. One of the things that our guest will get into a little bit more is just the impact of combat on our servicemen and women. There's a lot of things. Obviously, you can see the physical injuries. You can see those who have lost limbs or who have really suffered a great physical injury. But what you can't see are the things that are kind of under the surface. You can't see how it affects them mentally and psychologically and physiologically. And that's something that Donna and her organization, Defenders of Freedom, has really found a great way and a great purpose and a great mission in serving those veterans who are suffering from post-traumatic stress and from traumatic brain injury. We're going to hear from Donna here in just a second, a little bit more about what motivated her to found Defenders of Freedom and how they are serving those servicemen and women who are suffering from those issues and helping them to kind of regain more of their life and to take their life back and to become active participants in society again. So I'm privileged to introduce you to Donna Cranston, founder of Defenders of Freedom. Donna, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you
Good.
for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. It's our pleasure. Let's talk a little bit about your organization. We'll talk all about the stuff that you're doing through Defenders of Freedom and the ways that you're helping the vets here in just a little bit. But let's get into the background story of what really motivated you to begin Defenders of Freedom. So I guess we're what, about 15, 16 years into it?
15, yes.
15 years. Excellent. So tell us, what was it that you saw, or what was kind of your motivation for wanting to start Defenders of Freedom?
Okay. Well, in 2004, my son Matt was in Iraq, and of course, I was actually having a pretty tough time with that every day. And then in June, he left in February of 04. In June of 04, I found out DFW Airport was going to be one of two hubs in the country to house the R&R program when the troops were coming home for 2 weeks. They would land here at DFW, and then we would disperse them to their hometown through other flights, or a lot of them lived locally. And as I got to meet more and more of them, it was very natural for me, because I have 3 sons that were pretty much most of their ages. And so it was just natural for me to talk to them, see if they were getting good care packages, if they needed anything. And within just a couple of days, I had more than I could personally take care of financially and time-wise, because I was going out to the airport every day. And so I started asking some of the volunteers out there if they wanted help and adopt a soldier. And I was really overwhelmed, I think, by the response. And so what I found was most people supported the troops. They just didn't know how. If you don't have a loved one, or someone, a friend of a friend or something, people just don't know how to support. But I believe the heart of most Americans is that they do appreciate what our troops do for them. Right. So I started Defenders of Freedom simply as an avenue to connect the community to the troops. And over through 2013, we sent thousands and thousands of care packages to all over Iraq, Afghanistan, North Africa, Kuwait. Mm-hmm. And what was so great about being out at the airport is, first of all, hundreds of troops coming through a day. Sometimes we'd have as many as 338 on the flight, and then they would come in the morning, and then in the afternoon, you have the same plane load that had to report back by like 3 p.m. Then we would put them on the plane at night to go back to Kuwait and Iraq and Afghanistan. So we might see 600 or 700 troops a day. And I ended up joining the USO to volunteer so I could go on the secure side and be there to put them back on the plane as well. And so it gave me a lot of time to talk to them, find out what their needs were, what their wants were, because what I learned from my own son was not all things were equal. We had great big bases over there. Some
Mhm.
people never left those bases. My son was never on a base, so for him, baby wipes, beef jerky, and lemon heads were his priority. My, you can't send me enough. And what I learned about that was the benefit of being at the airport was that I could find out and personalize those care packages and send them just what they needed. And then if I had extra, I could send them what they wanted to.
Mm,
Or, I'm sorry, the needs and wants. Yeah, the needs were
mm,
priority. The wants were just if I had it extra, I would do it for them. So
yeah,
it really gave us kind of um, a little bit of an edge, and the guys, it just endeared them because we were sending them a lot of useful items for what they needed. Guys that were on the base all the time didn't need the baby wipes because they
mhm,
could go shower every day, where my son needed them for everything. They cleaned their weapons, they showered, that was their toilet paper, and they could carry them in their pockets wherever they went. So um, that was a great benefit, and it was a lot of fun. We just had so many that responded and let us know how much they appreciated it. There were guys when they'd go back on their multiple tours that would send me an email and say, hey, can we get some care packages? And being at the airport, the other thing it did, seeing those troops get off the plane every day, it really personalized who our military was for us. They
sure,
weren't just abstract faces in a uniform.
right.
They were individuals that we heard their stories. Many of them, we met their families that would come to
Mhm.
send them off or to greet them. So that was how that that started, and was very, very fun.
That's great, and so it's funny how such oftentimes you look at some kind of major initiative, and they usually, especially something like this, and they usually just start so small, and it was just a symptom of you recognizing just something little that you could do that then parlayed into something much bigger and much bigger than just your relationship with your son or with your unit, and it was it's really great to see that. And so what was the transition? So was there a particular turning point or tipping point for you where you saw a transition from what you were doing with just sending care packages to now wanting to found a major charitable organization?
Well, so I did that right in the beginning in 2004. In
Hmm.
September of '04 is when I actually filed for the 501(c)(3). And it is interesting how one thing goes, something small, and supporting my son, to now running a nonprofit that's helped veterans in 33 states, and just all that, because it's a good thing I didn't know what I didn't know.
Hmm.
Honestly, back then when Google was just starting up, I Googled how to start a nonprofit, and I went to the state of Texas, and all I needed was 4 people, and I had to come up with a mission statement, and I mean,
Uh-huh.
simple. It was as bare bone, basic, ignorant as you could, or blind. No, I think ignorant is a good word, because ignorant is not having knowledge. I
Sure.
didn't have any knowledge about what I was doing.
Right.
But one of the things I did when I came up with a mission statement was, I knew that I wanted to support our wounded troops. So I ended up putting, and I also went to just post 9/11 because I wanted to be focused and do well what we do.
Right.
And so I put in there that we were going to support wounded troops. I didn't
Hmm.
know what that would look like. I didn't know how. We weren't near a hospital or whatever, so I just didn't know what it looked like. So in about 2006, an advocate for wounded warriors who was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, evidently saw on my mission statement online somehow that
Hmm.
we supported wounded troops, and she called me with a need for a wounded young man with a traumatic brain injury, actually,
Right.
and asked if I would help him, and that was my very, very first introduction into the wounded. And then from there, it just kind of skyrocketed.
Gotcha. So with that particular soldier, what was it about your experience with that soldier that led you to understand or believe that there was a bigger opportunity to serve our veterans? What was it about that experience that really kind of catapulted you into the direction that the organization ended up taking?
Okay. So the question that the AW2 had for me was, would I buy a PDA
Mhm.
for this young man, because he had a brain injury and he was being seen at the VA. He was
Mm.
still active duty. and he had gotten blown up in Afghanistan, and he would leave for his appointments at the VA, and because of his brain injury, he might be driving down the road and see Walmart. And go, oh yeah, I need to go in Walmart. So he'd go in Walmart and spend way too much money, and 3 hours later leave and never show up for his appointment. And it
Mm.
happened numerous times. And so, but he came back. He thought he would just jump in his truck and go, but that short-term memory and impulsiveness is very much part of a brain injury. So
Right.
he then would get in trouble because he was still active duty. So then got rated as combative or whatever for not showing up for his appointments. Well, then he got his pay docked. And, it's just like a vicious circle. It just
Right.
is so frustrating to me. And here, my heart was all about this young man got hurt in combat. We owe him everything. How is he getting in trouble by
Right.
people that are soldiers too,
Right.
So I told her, yes. So the whole point for the PDA was to be able for him to set a reminder,
Mhm.
and that when he left in his truck 15 minutes later, he could have another reminder that says VA appointment until he got there.
Mhm.
And I was like, wow. And of course, everybody, let's take you back to 2004. Nobody had smartphones at that point.
Right.
So everything was still the PDFs or the little black or
Little Palm Pilots or Blackberries.
Yeah, the Blackberries, that kind of thing.
Right.
So here's what sold me 150%. I ran out and bought it, sent it to him, and maybe 2.5, 3 weeks later, he wrote me a note that said, he thanked me so much, and he said, you don't know how this has changed my life. It's given me an independence that I haven't had since I left Afghanistan.
Wow.
And the way it just touched me. I mean, I remember, I have the note somewhere, but I remember tearing up going, oh my gosh, this was such I spent $300 on that PDA. I mean, it was nothing to help the young man. So that's kind of what thrust us into helping. We ended up doing more with emergency financial assistance. I also helped him with financial assistance, because what people don't realize, when they get plucked out of country because they've been hurt, they lose their combat pay immediately.
Right.
So, and a lot of these young little soldiers, they're not making any money anyway, so then they can't pay their bills. And and he got his pay even docked for being combative, for not making his appointments. And so he just needed some help financially. So we helped. That was our introduction into helping with emergency assistance.
Gotcha. So what is it about your background that I know that you would probably say that you didn't have particular qualifications, or you didn't have like a particular degree in psychology or anything of that nature. All you had was just a heart to serve these men and women who had fought on our behalf and fought valiantly and paid a very high price. So what was it that you had? What was your learning curve like in terms of knowing what situations you were really going to be able to step in and make a positive impact on their life or their well-being, versus ones where you're like, I don't even know where to begin? Was there any kind of struggle that you had related to that?
Not really. I think here's the honest truth that is the only thing I can figure out.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 teenage boys that put me through the ringer, which is what I'm right there today. I think having my very strong 3 alpha sons set me up to be able to work with these. And I work with the female veterans too, but the majority of the ones with TBI and PTS are the males. And so many of them are my kids' age. I treated them like my kids. I talked to them when they would call me for help and I'm on the phone with them. I really just talked to them like they were my kids. I don't have we do have SOPs for our in processing and all that, but you have to have heart to listen. And that's what I had. And what I learned were so many of them were coming home with these unseen injuries that were totally unaddressed. They were being put out of the military. They go through the guys call it don't beat your wife classes, but they're supposed to be reintegration classes when they get back, that I think they've gotten better over time. But again, this is about 2006 when all this started for me. So it's way before they had in fact, what was happening they were just trying to rotate them in and out so fast. If they got hurt, get them out. We've got a huge war going on over here that got out of control. And so that so many of them fell through the cracks in the early ages.
Gotcha. Well, okay, so let's transition now into a little bit more of the modern approach that or approaches that are available for these soldiers. When you and I first met, I believe it was back much earlier this year, back in January, and I met you at the Synapse Clinic. And one of the things, those who are regular listeners to Thrivenomics, if you our second episode that we released was an interview that I conducted with Major Anthony Smith, who's a big fan of yours, obviously, and just a great individual and with an amazing story to tell. So I conducted that interview with Major Smith, and our CEO Roy conducted an interview with Eric Burkin. If you haven't heard that podcast, I invite you to go back and when you're done listening to this one, go download that second episode, and you'll hear firsthand from some veterans who have gone through this with the assistance of Donna and the Defenders of Freedom, have gone through a lot of the treatment that she and I are about to start talking about, and you'll hear firsthand their accounts of how it has helped them and achieve basically some sense of normalcy and kind of returned them to a productive life. So, what is it? How is your relationship with the Synapse Clinic in Dallas? How did you discover them? How did y'all get connected, and what's that relationship like?
In 2013, I had a friend that reached out to me that had just gotten a grant for treating veterans with TBI and PTS and through functional neurology. And she asked me if I had any veterans, that maybe would work for that program. And so I did. I sent her probably 35 veterans over time. And I met Dr. G'day. She was actually a student doctor at the time, getting her hours with functional neurology. She was already a doctor or a chiropractor, but she was getting her diplomate in functional neurology. So she was spending a lot of time in the clinic, and we just connected. I really liked her. And so I've just stayed with her ever since. She actually ended up going to a clinic out in Colorado, and I sent guys out there. And then now she's back here in Dallas. She opened a clinic at Parker University. Mm-hmm. So I think she's just a mastermind. She has saved several of our guys' lives. They were in total crisis, and within 3 or 4 days, she got a hold of them. And within 2 weeks, they're doing very, very well now.
That was really impressive to see, to actually get to see firsthand some of the treatments that the veterans were going through, and just the battery of tests, and getting to talk to Dr. G'day and some of the folks on her staff, just about how what it's like for these veterans to go through a lot of these exercises where they're effectively having to retrain their brain, and they're having to reestablish those connections that Raul, you and I and Donna, that are just everyday functions that we sometimes take for granted. Yeah. And so it was really interesting. I think the most interesting test that they went through was the one where they were sitting in what looks like a modified cockpit, and he's in a chair, and it's on a gimbal, and it's spinning them all 360 degree direction.
I was actually wondering, I wanted to ask, like, what is that? Because that to me was just, I don't even know what it was, and that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm curious to know what that was.
It was basically, Donna, you want to explain it?
It's called the Gyrus stem.
Gyrus stem.
And it rotates according to what their injury is and what they're trying to work or reignite, if you will. Mm-hmm. So they can tip forward, backward, fast, slow, all kind of angles. They have them do a laser pointer while they're doing it for multitasking. And just, I say that that's such a 101 uneducated way to put it. Dr. G'day would tell you very clearly how it's, because she's told me before, I just don't remember that. Like when their brains have been so focused on one thing, when they multitask, like getting dizzy, if they're, and again, because they're soldiers, it's so fun to watch them with this laser. They're ready to shoot and get every target. It takes it off their focus off that dizziness, and they're able to, move past some of those areas that are challenges for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
So
kind of what I thought it was, because I saw the laser and I was like, man, I guess they're focusing on that laser as they're being spun, and I was like, man,
Mm-hmm.
that is so cool technology. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things, like, I remember Roy talking about, it's like the Matrix, like sci-fi stuff that you guys are doing over there, and that's so cool. I
Yeah.
think so many people are going to be interested in just knowing more about it.
Absolutely. We can, on the video version of the podcast, we could probably
Yeah,
insert some of the clips
yeah, we will.
that we've got of some of those, some of the different exercises and the machines that they were using.
Yeah,
But
that'd be
yeah,
great.
it was really interesting.
So resetting that vestibular or getting it in balance is so critical for so many different functions in their body
Of course.
and this is where people, I think, when they think of a brain injury, they think of someone totally debilitated. But what's happening is like their dizziness, their lack of balance, and been kind of different things with him. One of the guys said every time he stood for the last 10 years, every time he stood, he expected that he was going to be dizzy, and he didn't just stand up and walk. He would stand, let his equilibrium balance out, and then walk.
Mm-hmm.
The gyrus stem is wonderful about resetting all of that. So they're and falling too. When a lot of times when they stumble, they fall, that kind of thing. And so the gyrus stem is just, while it looks so fun, it is foundational to getting that vestibular area, which affects our whole bodies,
Mm-hmm.
getting that back in balance. So it's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I think my older brother, one of the reasons why I feel so close to Defenders of Freedom and what we're doing is because one of my older brothers he did 2 tours in Iraq, and kind of the similar thing happened to him, that he came back and he just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And I really and now that was a while back, so now he's doing much better. But I really wish I had known about this back then, because some of the things that Donna's talking about right now, just like the way it was really hard for him to just walk. Like it's like he was dizzy all the time, and sometimes I actually thought that like he was joking, because my brother, he jokes a lot. Like, he's rarely ever serious, and so that was one of the things I thought he was joking, because he was just so, like, he didn't have any balance, and and I just didn't think about it, because although there's a lot of military in my family, I like, I'm a video guy. I do web, so
Right.
I don't really know much about it, but I respect it a lot.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that with my brother, I had no idea. And so since we've been getting involved with Defenders of Freedom, I'm just kind of hearing what's going on, and a lot of the back and forth talk, and it's like, wow, I can really see that my brother was definitely someone who needed, like, something like this. So.
After
So let's get him on our list. What are we?
you go.
Why haven't you reached out to say, hey, my brother can use this? Let's get him in.
There you go, Earl.
I will. I'll talk to him about it, actually. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just share
That'll
my
be good.
contact with him and tell him to call me, because
Okay.
while he and this is what I'll tell you, which is a perfect example, while he probably seems like he's doing okay, what he's done is he has adapted to what his injuries are and what he says is his new norm now.
Right.
He's probably not sleeping a lot every night. He probably has some anger issues, and just not bad. But if we could help balance that and get that back in balance for him, I'm more than especially 2 tours. I'm more than thrilled to do that for him. So you definitely,
Oh.
I'll be following up with you if I
Okay.
don't hear from him.
Okay. Yeah. I'll pass that on.
Yeah, you're not off the hook.
Yeah. Well, because this thing is, I don't really know what he has. I know he's on a lot of medication, and I know he has, like, a really good spirit. Like, he's still always joking around. Like, you just don't know when he's joking or he's talking serious, because he's always joking around. So
Right.
it is kind of hard for me to know. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
to me, in my eyes, he's doing good.
The meds can do a lot too. And one of the things about this clinic that's so wonderful is a lot of them get off their meds over
Yep.
time, which the meds, I believe, are one of the biggest contributors to the veteran suicide. With so many on them, you take them coming back not who they were,
Mhm.
and then nobody addressing that, but instead giving them a whole host of meds that changes who they are. They can't function. They know they're not the same, but they don't know why and all that. This clinic will get them off their their
Wow.
meds. If now some of them have to stay on some of them, but for the depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, that kind of thing, they can get them off a lot of that stuff.
Okay. I'll be reaching out to you then.
That was one of the amazing things that stuck out to me about my interview with Major Smith was, and Donna, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think he said when he first went to Synapse, or when he first started working with you, he was on 32 different medications. By the time he was done with his treatment, it was down to 4.
Yeah.
That's astounding. I mean, just think how much of his body was being impacted by
Yeah.
all these different chemicals just
I know.
coursing through it. And then to be able to just through a 2-week battery of tests and exercises and exams, he was able to eliminate 7/8
Right.
of his medication prescriptions. That's astounding to me.
Mhm. That
It
is.
is.
And hugely needed,
Yes.
Yeah.
and probably a
And
lot better on his pocketbook too.
Yeah.
we also will do their blood work to see um, about their hormones, because low testosterone is indicative of a brain injury. So when we can get that balanced, then you get them off a lot of those other meds that aren't messing up their whole body and their liver.
Right.
If nothing else, just think about their liver processing all that.
Right.
So it really does bring a much more balanced wellness to their whole body,
That's
so that they're not on so many meds.
That's phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing the kind of strides that have been achieved through the work that Dr. Godet is doing, and the fact that you're facilitating it, Donna, with so many veterans. Let's kind of move our conversation into talking about other things that Defenders of Freedom is involved with in terms of reaching veterans. Like, you're not just focused on those that are suffering from PTS. I mean, that's your primary area of focus. But what are some of the other things that Defenders of Freedom does or engages in to try and help veterans of all stripes?
Okay. And our focus is post 9/11 veterans who have deployed to the Middle East. And then one of the things that we started with, and we still do on a very limited basis, but for 10 years, or 13 years, it's been our thrust, was emergency financial assistance. And what we would do is help them when they came back. They were waiting on their benefits to start. They couldn't hold a job or get a job, or whatever. We would pay bills for them, and we still will do that because we still have veterans transitioning out all the time. So we will do it. And then also we'll help pay their bills if they have to take off work to go through brain treatment.
Mhm.
I will pay their bills for that month so that they can, take off without pay and not worry about it. And because I really believe it's so foundational to their moving forward. So we're moving out of that, but we are doing it. And one of the reasons too that we've kind of shifted is we don't have so many coming home now. Again, we had quite a few years where they were just in and out. It was like a revolving door, and VA couldn't keep up. They have gotten better. The lag isn't near as long, and so with that lack of need, we have focused other through the other. The other thing that we still do is I really believe that getting together with other veterans to do fun activities together is critical to their well-being also. And especially, and again, so many have moved into areas that work for them, that we're not doing it as much as we were. But I used to take the guys out shooting like monthly.
Mm-hmm.
Or weekly. Sometimes it just depended on who we had. They love to shoot. A lot of people are afraid of people with PTSD, shooting them and whatever. I've never had that fear. The Chris Kyle thing was very sad, but I think it was an isolated incident.
Sure.
I've never had that fear because so many of them, it's the first time they've held a gun since they were medevaced out of country,
Right.
and it's who they are. It's what they've trained to do. It's very healing for them.
Mm-hmm.
Then you take them out with other veterans that can, have a friendly, mean competition.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're all, it's just very healing. And so we've been able to create, our main thing right now that we're doing with that is fitness. That one of the gyms here that is owned by one of the former Cowboys, and he played for other teams too, but he did play for the Cowboys. He owns a gym right here in Capel, and he
Mhm.
reached out. He wants to help the guys that have injuries, but not amputations, maybe. But they still have been impacted terribly, and so he'll help retrain them to be able to work out. And he wants just small groups of 4 and 6 veterans. So
Right.
that's one thing that we're really trying to build right now, because it helps them also in their overall wellness to be fit again.
Yeah. Well,
So those are the main things.
that's that kind of stuff is really great. I won't go so far as to say it's as beneficial as what Synapse is doing, but it's still creating that sense of community, which is what they left behind when
Yes.
they deployed home. I mean, you want to talk about a tight knit community. That's what the military gives you,
Yes.
and that's what these soldiers had when they were going through all those struggles, and now they're coming back home, and it might be a little bit harder for them to find it. So creating those opportunities to develop, to enhance that community feel is, I totally get why that's such a benefit to these servicemen and women.
Yes.
So, are there any events that you sponsor? I know we're you've got a golf tournament coming up pretty
Yes.
soon. You want to talk about
Yes.
that real quick?
Yes, and also one of our programs also is when we were doing the shooting thing, one of the guys
Mhm.
came up to me and said, "Hey, Donna, I love shooting. I'm an infantryman. I always will, but I really want to do this same program with golf. Can I take guys out?" He had been through the golf academy. He used his
Uh-huh.
GI Bill to do that. So he'll take out guys that don't know how to play golf, and I'll pay for it. And then he just kind of helps them an introduction into learning how to play. And I'm telling you, it's another great bonding experience
Sure.
that I have. I bet there are 50 guys I could point to you that have never played golf before, who golf has changed their life.
Mhm.
And it becomes very therapeutic for them. My son is one. In fact, when Matt got back, and my first golf outing, he was so angry that he couldn't find the course. He didn't even play. He got there and he was a mess.
Mhm.
And what I didn't know at the time, I was just mad at him for being angry. But what I didn't know at the time is that was part of his brain injury. But the next year he came back and played. And when he graduated from UT Austin, Tim and I bought him golf clubs for his graduation, because he had loved the game so much. And I love the whole idea of the golf for the veterans.
That's fantastic.
So our golf outing is one of our biggest events, and it's our funnest event for sure.
Mhm.
And the reason, what I tried to do, again, by starting Defenders of Freedom and connecting the community to the troops. Well, those troops are now veterans, so we just want to make that connection too. But because it's also such a wonderful healing time for these guys to be supported by the community, but also to be around a bunch of other veterans, what makes our golf outing so special? And actually, it was supposed to have been yesterday for our 15th annual,
Right.
and we've had to push it to September because of COVID.
Right.
So I had a little bit of a downer day yesterday.
Oh.
But what we do is we ask people to pay for a foursome, bring 3 golfers, and we will give you one of our veterans to play on your team. And it has been just such a success. And at the time, back in about probably 2008 and 9, one of the things I realized that was so beneficial about this, once these people build this friendship, they're calling them throughout the week, or
Mhm.
having them over for dinner, or just connecting, emailing, and there being a whole nother support, that I was finding myself just so inundated with phone calls 24/7. I mean, it was just never stopped. And so what I started finding is I would tell people, please just build a bond with them, and you be there, let them call you. And we've got guys that now their foursome has been together for 4 or 5 years, but they want this veteran again
Right.
because they've built such a strong bond. And it's wonderful. And so we bring the guys in on a Sunday, and we have a big barbecue in a backyard.
Mhm.
Somebody hosts this for us, and we'll invite all the veterans. It's kind of a closed event. We will have some sponsors there too.
Mhm.
Um, And it's just, there is like magic that happens in this backyard for veterans who haven't seen other veterans, or I'll try to bring in guys from the same unit that haven't seen each other for years. And whether they know each other or not, veterans connect instantly because they're veterans.
Right.
Then they find out how close their worlds are, when they've served in some of the same areas. I remember introducing two guys that were on a ship together back in Desert Storm. And anyway, it was so fun. But that's our golf outing. Our golf outing is the biggest event we have. We'll be on 2 courses. It's September 15th this year.
All right.
We still have room for players. So, we would welcome anybody that wants to come. We've still got some sponsorships open as well.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I know that it's kind of funny that you've now had to open it up to multiple courses because you can't fit everybody that wants to be involved on just one course now. So
Yeah.
that's a huge testament to how well, as you were saying, how popular this is, and how much it is, not just for the veterans, but also for the people that are paying for that are getting to play with them, and
Yeah.
just how impactful and how memorable an event that must be. So what are some ways, as we kind of wrap things up a little bit, what are some ways that people can connect with Defenders of Freedom? How do they find out more about you? What are how can they find you on social media? What are some what's some contact information that you can give our audience?
Okay. We are on all of that. Our website is defendersoffreedom.us and also .net. .net just rolls into US. So
Okay.
.us. And we're on Twitter at Def of Freedom, I think, although Jody and I are really bad about that. We don't tweet very much. And then we are on Instagram and we are on Facebook.
All right. Well,
So we're on all of those.
okay. And through your website, I know that you have a way, if people want to donate financially and want to get involved with financial commitments or supporting you in some way, they can do that through your website.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a donate page, or if you want to, there's also a contact page if you want to contact us. And Jody or I we respond very quickly. So, yeah, definitely through the website.
Okay. Well, great. Well, Donna, thank you again for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and some of the stories that you shared, I've obviously heard before, but our audience may not have. And so I really just wanted to give you a platform of talking about Defenders of Freedom, talking about the urgent need that there is in your world for supporting these men and women. One last thing that I want to ask you about: you had some very interesting comments that I liked about the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and that there is a distinct difference. Can just for those that may not be aware of the distinction, this is not one thing that we don't want to promote. Is this is not just another 3-day weekend that happens during the year. There is a specific reason why Memorial Day was established. How should a non-veteran, how should civilians treat this particular day if they encounter a veteran in their life?
Okay. Well, obviously, Memorial Day is set aside to just remember those who have given everything, who have died in service to our nation.
Mhm.
And for many of our veterans, it is a very solemn day. They might have been sitting right next to that guy,
Right.
and he came home and the guy didn't.
Right.
So they live with that, as the families. The families, this holiday for them isn't just a barbecue. It is remembering their son.
Mhm.
There's a gal right here in Capel that is her biggest fear is that her 19-year-old son at the time when he died, and it's been 13 years now, that he would be forgotten.
Mhm.
And she said, all I want is for people to remember him. So this day, this one day set aside that our nation does remember, that's what it's about, for the families, to help them know that we are remembering and honoring, and that we can't ever forget that our freedoms come at such a high price.
Yes.
So that's Memorial Day. Veterans Day is to honor those living and thank them for their service.
Mm-hmm.
Memorial Day is just a day to remember. We still need to have fun on that day,
Of course.
but just remember what it's about.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Absolutely.
Our
Yeah,
freedoms are not guaranteed.
that's correct. Freedoms are not guaranteed. That's an excellent point, and we want to echo that. It's not something where it needs to be a solemn occasion for the entire day, but definitely remember what the purpose of Memorial Day is, and take a moment just to, whether it's a moment of silence or a prayer, just take a moment to think about those who have sacrificed their lives for generations in order to maintain, and in order for us to maintain the freedoms that we enjoy, and don't take those freedoms for granted, but definitely take some time to honor those who did sacrifice the ultimate price. And again, Donna, we thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to be on with us today, and really appreciate so much the work that you're doing through Defenders of Freedom, and the fact that you have the heart to serve those who served us. So we just want to thank you and honor you for that, and appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate all you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Our pleasure. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Thrivenomics. Hopefully you learned a lot of great information about Defenders, not just Defenders of Freedom, but the work that Donna Cranston and so many others across the country, across so many other organizations, are doing to support our veterans. Make sure that you are doing your homework and doing your research when you want to give to organizations, and that make sure that they are truly supporting the veteran, that the support that you are donating is truly making its way fully to the veterans, as it does with Defenders of Freedom, and it's an organization that's making such an indelible impact on the lives of our servicemen and servicewomen who need that support. And so we encourage you to check out Defenders of Freedom as often as you can, and find ways that you can contribute. But with that being said, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you, Raul, Raul Espinoza, my podcast producer, for being in studio and chiming in, and
You're welcome.
and for getting Donna another soldier to work with.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll see how that works out.
Absolutely. All right. Well, goodbye for now. And if you ever have questions about Thrive Mortgage, or would like to make suggestions about future podcast topics, we'd love to hear them. Just reach out to us at Thrivenomics@thrivemortgage.com. You can also hit us up on our social media pages, send us messages there, and we'll be back soon with another episode. And can't wait to talk to everybody again. Have a wonderful day. This is Thrivenomics. The title sponsor of this show is Thrive Mortgage. Licensed in multiple states across the U.S., Thrive Mortgage employs the best professionals equipped with leading technology and the most efficient process to deliver a legendary lending experience. For more information about how we can serve you, or to find a local mortgage professional in your area, please visit us at thrivemortgage.com. Thrive Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS number 268552.